Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I'm delighted to be joined by the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Tim Farron. But first, Anushka.
Thanks, Robert. Well, there has been some reaction to that Damien Green interview, particularly a focus on the issue of energy bills and that policy. We have the FT's Jim Pickard here, who points out that the 2015 Ed Miliband promise to freeze energy bills was labelled as shocking and extremely dangerous by the Tories. Penny for his thoughts now. In fact, if you are out there watching Ed Miliband, let us know what you think. But first, the Lib Dems are in fight-back mode, and the man leading the charge here with us today is Tim Farron. But what do folk think of Tim Farron? Shall we have a look?
Let's.
Here we go. What have people been Googling about you? Well, I'm afraid it is not good news top of the list. Who is Tim Farron? But the good news is, further down, a nice compliment there. Is Tim Farron married? And is Tim Farron a Christian? The answer is yes, and I'm sure there will be more on that later. But first, what about that Lib Dem pro-EU strategy? Are there seats that they could pick up? Here we have the percentage Remain vote in different constituencies, and then these are Tory seats, and that is the majority that the Lib Dems want to overturn. This is what I would call, if I get the pen right, the Lib Dem sweet spot. High Remain vote, small majority. Not all that many seats. Twickenham there, where Vince Cable will be hoping to make a comeback. Other Remain seats, huge majorities to overturn, although we should take note that Richmond Park, when you had the resources, they did overturn a massive majority. Very interestingly, though, here are some key Lib Dem targets, seats like Eastbourne, and guess what? A majority of people voted Leave. It will be interesting to see how their message goes down in places like that. Robert.
Delighted to be joined by Tim Farron. Anushka was just talking about the whole issue of resources. How are you doing on money?
Pretty well, and we haven't got enough. Anybody out there feeling generous should consider the Liberal Democrat bank account is still open for business. Since the announcement on Tuesday, Liberal Democrats have raised 1.6 million.
So have you ever raised as much money?
Nowhere near in that short time.
So that's 1.6 million over how long?
Well, that's until Friday, so goodness knows what it is today. That's more than 3 times what Labour have raised.
And is that basically disappointed Remainers thinking you're their only hope?
It's all sorts of different people. It's lots of people predominantly who had backed the Conservatives in the past, who believe that Theresa May's choice of a hard Brexit outside the single market makes her an anti-business politician now, and see the Liberal Democrats as the only free trade, anti-protectionist, pro-business party. But there's lots more than that. I think people want a decent opposition. Many people, I think, who are supporting us actually include those who voted to leave in the referendum last June, but just think Britain needs a decent opposition.
So just to be clear, I mean, because I thought Anushka's analysis was very interesting, there are lots of smaller majorities for you to overturn in seats that voted to leave. What is your message to voters in those areas? Because most people would think you couldn't possibly win in the southwest, for example, where you used to be very strong, but where there are lots of Leave voters.
Well, first of all, this election, which is one we really relish, we've been calling for it since July, is an opportunity for the British people to change the direction of the country. And we argue that whether you're for or against Brexit, you surely must believe that it is right for the government to make better choices than they're currently making. To take us out of the single market, to choose a hard Brexit was something that was not on the ballot paper.
This is still all about Leave Remain. It's still all about Brexit.
But it's also about having a strong and decent opposition. So what you didn't see there was the enormous amount of by-election wins we've had in local government since last June, the majority of which were in Leave-inclined areas. And that's a reminder that one of the reasons people are backing the Liberal Democrats now is that we are the only party providing a clear alternative to what I'm going to argue is the coalition of chaos. Theresa May, Jeremy Corbyn and UKIP all backing a hard Brexit, which is calamitous for Britain's future.
But let's just pick up on that. I mean, we did ask our viewers under the hashtag #AskTim to send in some questions.
Good.
John Crisp actually captures, I think, something that is confusing quite a lot of people. Are you standing in your manifesto on essentially a soft Brexit, so membership of the single market, or is it actually no Brexit. He is somebody who would like to see Brexit overturned.
So, be very, very clear. Liberal Democrats believe there should be a referendum at the end when the deal is decided.
So you would give British people the opportunity to change their minds?
Of course. Well, to reflect on whether they like the deal. And the reality is, at the moment, Theresa May is going to come back in 18 months' time, let's say, with a deal. She doesn't even know what it's going to look like. Right. It will impact upon us as a country, all of our families, for generations to come. At the moment, the Conservatives are asking you to give them a blank cheque to deliver any old shoddy deal, or good, bad or indifferent, whichever, in 18 months' time. They want the politicians to decide.
But just to reassure John and Chris, it's very clear, but you are the no-Brexit party.
We want the people to decide, and that means allowing them to vote to remain if they wish to.
Okay.
If they vote yes, then yes, we go out of the European Union on that new deal. It shouldn't be a stitch-up. It shouldn't be for the politicians to decide. It must be for the people.
Now, you said in an interview in The Guardian today that any talk of coalition after this election is bonkers. You're just not going to go into a coalition. So there are no circumstances where you would go into a coalition either with Tories or with Labour.
No circumstances whatsoever. We're very clear that in this election, with Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn, who have basically joined hands together to push us over the cliff edge of a hard Brexit by triggering Article 50 without any conditions, without any desire to, for example, fight for our place in the single market, which is so important for jobs and for our economy and for people's living standards, there can be no truck that we could have with those two parties and their leaders as they currently are. And
when you say no truck, there is a sort of halfway house. It's called, it's called a confidence and...
No supply and confidence, no coalition, no deals.
So you would not prop up a minority government?
No, because what is very clear at this moment is that we have an official opposition which is not behaving like an alternative government, but is not even behaving like an opposition. It is neither fish nor fowl on the biggest issue that has faced us for generations. What Britain needs in this election is clarity and a contest. Theresa May has called this election because she believes it will be a coronation. The Liberal Democrats are determined to make it a contest with a clear alternative position. And I don't want people thinking a vote for the Liberal Democrats is a proxy for anything else. A vote for the Liberal Democrats is for a strong opposition that will challenge the Conservatives on the NHS, on education, on the reduction in funding for the armed forces and for our police, for example, but also challenge the government on Brexit to make sure that they fight to keep us in the single market and give the British people the final say at the end.
Now, the policy that most people think devastated your vote in the last election was, when you were in coalition, the decision to back the rise in student fees. What will you be saying about student fees this time round?
Well, if you turn the clock back to that particular incident, you'll remember that I was one of the largest number of Liberal Democrat MPs who voted against tuition fees. And by the way, the system as it stands is not dissimilar to a graduate tax. That is perhaps where we should have been in the first place. But the bottom line about tuition fees, it was about keeping your word. And the fundamental thing out there, I hardly even need to say this, British people around the world, tend to have a sense that politicians are spinning them a yarn, that they aren't to be trusted. You should never do something that confirms that. The key thing is about making a pledge and sticking to it and keeping your promises, which is what I did back in 2010, and it's what I will do over our pledge not to form a coalition this time.
But, sorry, just to be clear, your position on student fees will be what?
Well, we need to make sure that they're fair. We don't sell off the student loans bank.
Would you cut the tuition fee?
The key thing is what students pay back. It's about bringing down the amount of money that people pay back week on week, month on month. One of the things the Conservatives have done...
So you will find a way of reducing the burden, will
Well, what they've done is they've frozen the threshold at which people pay back their fees, so it becomes more unaffordable for people. What we need to do, as we proposed to do when we were in government, was to keep raising the threshold so that you've actually got to be earning really quite a lot of money before you pay anything back.
Now, inside my terrible metropolitan bubble, I'm afraid to say that whenever your name comes up, people say, well, I might vote for Tim Farron, but I can't because he's a homophobe.
That's ludicrous.
But people believe this.
Yes. Well, I get asked the question, I have been over the last few days. I even got asked it in the House of Commons last Wednesday, and I answered it really clearly then. Being gay is not a sin. And as a committed Christian, I believe that you judge absolutely nobody. I am not a religious leader, though, Robert. I am not the Archbishop of Canterbury, and I stand on my personal record and on my party's record of being by far throughout history the most positive party when it comes to LGBT rights. So 2 weeks ago, I was the first party lead. Let me finish, if you don't mind. Forgive me. But I was the first party leader to call out against the disgraceful use of concentration camps in Chechnya against gay people. It took the government a week to follow me, and Theresa May has still not made any kind of comment on that. And I just think if we're going to be pro-LGBT rights, we need to make sure we do so in a way which is genuine and sincere. And my record speaks for itself.
But can I just ask you on that? You didn't vote for gay marriage in the third reading.
I voted for it the second reading.
But why didn't you vote it? Why did you not vote in the third reading?
Two reasons. First of all, there was no coverage of the spousal veto issue, which meant that transsexual people, transgender people did not have the opportunity to get married on the same basis as other people. And also, there were no protection conscience clauses in there. Those things were not put forward, but I supported the concept of it. I voted for it at second reading and have defended it ever since.
Now, look, I'm
actually proud of it, if you think about it. You know, if it hadn't been for Lynn Featherstone and Nick Clegg, equal marriage would not happen in this country. And I'm proud to be the leader of the party those people are in, and proud that that's our policy going forward.
Now, I'm going to press you on this because it does matter to lots and lots of people. In The Observer today, they asked you, you said homosexuality not a sin. They say that you didn't answer when they asked you whether gay sex was a sin.
Oh, come on, Robert. I mean, I've been asked this question loads of times over the last few days, and I have been clear, even in the House of Commons, being gay is not a sin.
But is sex between...
Robert, I think, if I'm honest with you, it's possible that I'm not the only person who's getting tired of this line of questioning.
No, probably, but then why don't you just close it down?
You know, in America...
By being unambiguous.
In America, it appears that you have to invent a faith in order to be seen to be a serious candidate for anything. And in this country, maybe it appears you have to pretend you haven't got one to be taken seriously. Can I just point out, possibly even slightly impatiently, that both of those standpoints are utterly ludicrous? Should we talk about things that might impact on the election?
Well, faith does matter. Will you be bringing, then, faith into your campaign at all?
I have always been somebody who believes very strongly in a secular society. So I'm a free church person,
right.
But I also believe very much the Church of England should be disestablished. I think it is wrong in a free society. It's wrong for the church, for one thing, to be the state church. I think it's bad for a free society to have a state religion.
So in your vision of liberalism, as it were, everybody should be free to behave in terms of their own conscience, but the state should have no role in the promotion of faith whatsoever.
It's bound to have an impact on one's worldview. I mean, if you ask me why I've spent so much time in refugee camps over the last couple of years, yes, my faith has a massive impact on my sense that everybody is created equal, and an absolute sense of affront to dignity, human dignity, to see people treated in that way. So it's bound to affect your outlook and your worldview. But the notion that you impose personal morality, religious morality on other people is an outrage, and is actually contrary to the teaching of the Bible, and it's certainly contrary to my liberalism.
But just to be clear, because I'm interested in this,
diverse society.
You would disestablish the church, but will that be a liberal policy?
Yes, it is. But it has been since Lloyd George's day. We managed it with Wales. We just weren't in power long enough, I'm afraid.
Sorry, I missed that.
This is our
what an
chance.
idiot I am. Anyway, look, very, very nice to have you here today. I'm glad you cleared all that up. My thanks to Tim Farron.
I've been getting